Once oil quality begins to decline, it does not only affect lubrication, it begins to influence turbo operation, emissions control performance, timing chain wear, and overall system stability. Welcome to Motive Components. I'm Marvelous. For technicians and workshops working with modern vehicles, the DV5 engine is no longer unpredictable. In fact, it has become highly recognizable in the way that it behaves when problems begin to develop. What used to appear as isolated, unrelated faults are now clearly understood as repeatable patterns. And in a workshop environment, understanding those patterns is what separates costly reactive repairs and rebuilds from long-term reliable solutions. So now let's talk about the DV5 as a connected system. In the workshop, DV5 related issues very rarely present as single isolated failures. Instead, technicians will often see combinations of symptoms appearing together or in sequence, such as progressive oil degradation and contamination, turbo-related efficiency or response complaints, emission system faults linked to DPF or EGR operation, and multiple sensor-based warnings appearing across different systems. Now, a lot of times, let's talk about the chain rattle on startup. The important point here is that addressing only one of those symptoms in isolation, for example, replacing a single component without correcting the underlying condition, rarely resolves the issue long term. In most cases, the vehicle will return with the same or related faults because the root cause was never fully addressed. So, how will the vehicle present in the workshop? Typically, DV5 vehicles arrive with a combination of customer-reported symptoms and system-generated warnings. These may include general service or maintenance alerts, noticeable changes in oil level or oil condition, DPF or EGR fault messages stored in the system, and a lot of times, rattle on startup or under load, and reduced performance, drivability concerns, or increased fuel consumption. A key challenge in diagnosis is that customers describe what they feel, not what is happening mechanically at system level. That is why structured diagnosis is essential, rather than relying on symptoms alone. Now, root cause and service intervals versus the actual reality. One of the most consistent underlying issues we see is the mismatch between recommended service intervals and real-world usage patterns. On paper, extended service intervals are designed to work under controlled, ideal operating conditions. However, most vehicles are not used in that way. Urban driving, frequent short journeys, repeated cold starts, and inconsistent engine temperatures all accelerate oil degradation, significantly beyond what those intervals assume. Once oil quality begins to decline, it does not only affect lubrication, it begins to influence turbo operation, emissions control performance, timing chain wear, and overall system stability. Now, in real workshop conditions, what often follows is a predictable chain reaction. Oil degradation increases internal friction and reduces lubrication efficiency. This places additional stress on the timing and turbocharger components. As turbo performance becomes inconsistent, emission systems are forced to compensate and timing components are stressed beyond optimal operating conditions. Blocked or inefficient emission systems then increase overall engine load, and eventually multiple sensors begin to trigger warnings across different systems simultaneously. At this stage, the issue is no longer a simple component replacement, it becomes a full system recovery process. Now, what is the trade best practice? Workshops that consistently manage DV5 engines effectively tend to adopt a system-first approach rather than symptom-first approach. This includes proactively reducing service intervals based on the usage patterns, inspecting oil condition and contamination, not just oil level, addressing lubrication and emission systems together as interconnected systems, educating customers on how driving behavior directly affects engine health, and using components that are proven under real-world operating conditions, not just ideal test environments. This approach significantly reduces repeated comebacks and helps build long-term trust with customers. So, in conclusion, the DV5 engine rewards those who understand it beyond the fault code. When you recognize the pattern clearly and act on the system as a whole, you prevent escalation rather than reacting to failure. For dependable components built for the realities of modern engines, choose Motive Components. I'm Marvelous, deliver more.